Hello, so welcome to the next square of the 50 Stitches Crochet Along, and this week we're making the Entrelac stitch. I think that's how you say it. So this is a form of Tunisian crochet that you can make with a normal side hook, and it makes these lovely knitted sections that go together. So we're going to make it in squares from corner to corner. So we start here and we go diagonally up and down. So how do we make it? So for this square we're going to use a 4.5mm hook. Okay. So for Entrelac, each square is made slightly differently depending on where it's placed. So we're starting with our starter square, and for this we're going to chain 7. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now each of our blocks is going to be 6 stitches wide. Okay. So now in the second chain from your hook, you're going to pull up a loop and then go into the next stitch and pull up a loop. You do this for all chains. Okay. Right to the end. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you have 7 loops on your hook. Now, Entrelac is kind of a cross between crochet and knitting, so every row takes 2 passes to make. So we've done our first pass, and now we need to come back again. So now we're going to yarn over and pull through the first loop only. Okay. Then yarn over, pull through the next 2 loops. Yarn over, pull through the next 2, yarn over, next 2, and then next 2, next 2, and the last 2. And that is your first row. We're going to be making 5 rows in total. That might not make much sense, we want 6 stitches, but it will make sense eventually. Okay, so now we need to do row 2, and from after we do our foundation we're going to be making the rest of the stitches in these vertical posts. So we're going to ignore this first one, you don't do anything in there. Go into the next one, hook through, pull up a loop, hook through and pull up a loop all the way across. We get to the end, and we go through this final one on the edge as well. Okay. So 7 loops on your hook again, then yarn over, pull through the first loop only, yarn over, pull through the 2, next 2, next 2, next 2, next 2. Oh, I've got a knot in my yarn. See if I can just move that. It's typical, isn't it? Always get a knot at the worst time, don't you? There we go. And then I can make my last 2. Okay, and you can see we're getting that nice look that we get through with Tunisian. I'm going to carry on this until we have 5 rows of these posts. We do it exactly the same way. Ignore this post here, pull up a loop through every one of these posts, including the last one. Then at the end, yarn over, pull through the first loop only, and then yarn over, pull through 2 until you get to the end. So I will see you in a moment when I get to the end. Got to the end of that row. As you can see, we've got these gaps at the top, so we need to do a cast off row. To do that, go into that second post and just slip stitch. And just slip stitch in each of the posts all the way across. Okay, and we need to get into that side one as well. then when you get to the end, you're going to chain 1, and then you can cut off, and that is your first block done. So now we're going to add our next block on the right here, and we're going to join it as we go. And we'll carry on. We need to join into the very corner, bottom hand right corner. And to join it, we need to put a hook in first and then slip knot our yarn, and that's just so we can pull through a single strand of yarn. And for this one we're going to chain 6. 4, 5, 6. So if you remember for this starting square we chain 7, but our 7th stitch is where we're going to join into the starting square. So from here on in we only chain 6. And exactly the same as the other square, in a second chain from your hook, you're going to pull up a loop. And pull up a loop in every chain across. Okay, and now we get to the edge, and I'm going to join in the same place as we joined our yarn in. Now in the last square we yarned over and pulled through 1 loop only to begin with. We don't do that for all of the other squares. So if a square is joining into another one, you don't do pull through 1. You yarn over and pull through 2. And do that all the way across until we only have 1 loop on our hook left. There we go. And you see our posts are there again. And exactly the same as before, starting the second one, pull up a loop until we get to the end. Okay, so at this point we should have 6 loops on our hook. And now we need to join, and we're going to join into the next space up. So that's where we join the first, we join the second row into here. Pull through a loop, then yarn over, pull through 2, all the way back down. So I'm going to carry on until I've got 5 rows of posts, and I'll see you when I get there. So I'm at the top of the square, and you can see I've got those holes again. So again we need to do a cast off row. So in that second post, slip stitch, and slip stitch in each post across. There's that last post, and then we're going to slip stitch into this top slip stitch of the starting row. I made my slip stitch slightly too tight there. There we go. So try and keep your slip stitches slightly loose. Okay, and you can see 2 squares nicely joined together with that lovely texture going on. So now we need to start our second square of this diagonal on top of our starter square there. So if I show you the back, you can see it's got a really knitted look to it. So this square we're going to start it exactly as we would before. We're going to treat this slip stitch row as our foundation chain. So into the square we just slip stitch into, yarn over, pull up a loop, and to each slip stitch you yarn over and pull up a loop. So there are slight differences in every square depending on its position, but essentially they're all made the same. Oops. So when we get to the end here, we should have 7 loops on our hook. Now, because this square is on the edge, we're going to yarn over and pull through the first loop only. Okay, So you pull through the first loop only on all the squares that go up on the edge on the left hand side, and after that it's yarn over and pull through 2 all the way across. Until the edge. And we're going to create this square now exactly the same way as before, through the posts, and just remember when you get to the end one you do have to yarn over and pull through once before you pull through 2. So I'm going to carry on with that, and I shall see you when I get to the end of the square. Okay, so I got to the top of that square, I've done the cast off row, and as I did for the starting square I've chained one at the end as well. So they are all nicely joined together. You can see it's curling up a bit. That's because this stitch is really quite dense and tight. But if you try and keep loose your tension, then it should turn out just fine, and blocking will sort it out. It does look a bit higgledy-piggledy, but once the next blocks are on it will start straightening out a bit. So the next block starts back here, and we do exactly the same as we did for this one. And for the next block in the middle here, we're going to treat this slip stitch row as a foundation row and join in with this one as we go. And then for the next block on top of here, we just repeat this one. So depending on where the blocks are, they are slightly different, but very, very similar. So the starting block is a chain 7. Every other block across here you'll chain 6, and then when you're coming on top of another block you treat that cast off row as your foundation chain. To go down you just start the row on this block here and then stop here. Okay. If I just go back to the original square, you can see we've got 5 squares across, 5 squares up, all nicely knitted together. You can see at the back. So for the border, you're going to make a stitch in the top of every square and the sides as well. You will need to put a stitch between the squares as well. So where they've knitted together, that counts as a stitch, so you do need to get one in there. So you should have 30 stitches across, 1 in every square, in every stitch in every square, including the ones in between. And then add an extra corner in the turn, an extra single crochet in the corner of the turn even, and that is the corner to corner entrelac stitch. So as always, if you have any questions, please do come over to the Facebook group and show us your finished squares. I always love to see how you're getting on. So thank you for joining me, and I shall see you next week for the next stitch. Bye for now.